Hey guys, everyone's favorite Dinobot here, and today we're going to be changing a fate. Jazzes from the 2007 Transformers movie, who got done dirty, who could have been a staple character in the franchise much more, if not more so than Bumblebee. This is Optimus Prime's first lieutenant. In this verse, this dude has Ultra Magnus's rank. Okay? That's how much of a prominent character he is. So we're actually going to be changing his fate a little bit, but instead of doing like a how I survived, we're going to be doing a what if he fought someone else? What if Jazz didn't make it to the city, but Optimus did? What if Jazz fought Bonecrusher? Let's begin. So our story pretty much takes place like in the original. The Autobots are on the highway making their way towards Mission City with Sam and the Allspark. Optimus is actually going a lot further ahead this time instead of being behind Ironhide and Ratchet. So let's say they're about the same length here. Jazz, however, starts to slow down and then tells them through communications that he'll handle the situation. Optimus, trusting his first lieutenant, drives ahead along with Ironhide, Ratchet, and Bumblebee. Bonecrusher transforms like in the original, killing a bunch of civilians because he's a total savage. I mean, jeez. That poor bus did not deserve... That was a tour bus, too. It did not deserve that. But anyway... Jazz immediately engages Bonecrusher on the freeway, transforming in such a smooth fashion that he actually is in the air when Bonecrusher comes at him with his claw. Jazz, however, is able to maneuver himself around Bonecrusher and pretty much slam him into the first bridge and shoots him with his cannon to send him off the second bridge. You might say, oh, Legendary, why is he sending him flying? Well, that's pretty simple. His gun was able to hurt Megatron. I think that will be able to send him flying. Now, landing at the bottom of the freeway, like in the original, he actually goes toe-to-toe with Bonecrusher. Now, in the concept art and in Transformers the game, which was for the Wii, Jazz had melee weapons. He had a bow staff, and in the Transformers the movie concept art, he had a sword. Like, he could turn his arm into a sword. So I decided we're going to give him basically like this spear, this bladed spear, or bladed staff, if you will. So basically, we're combining the sword end, but putting it on a staff. And this will be a double-edged, staff here. Pretty simple for him to use, and he is skilled enough to pretty much use it. So like in the original, he and Bonecrusher are actually going at it. Jazz is using his maneuverability to actually get the upper hand on Bonecrusher and is actually able to get on top of him a couple times. Bonecrusher would then use his claw, which Jazz would then use his double-bladed staff to basically cut the claw off and then proceed to outmaneuver and then proceed to beat down Bonecrusher with his skill. Okay, Jazz is pretty skilled in Transformers the game and was actually skilled enough in the comics if he actually was brought back with the Allspark fragment and was skilled enough to basically hang with Optimus Prime and deal with Starscream. So yeah, the dude was pretty powerful. So Jazz would end up killing Bonecrusher and pretty much finishing it with a shot to the head, and then he would he would find himself a good passageway to Mission City and transform and would get there. Now, Optimus Prime in the city changes a lot here because you have Optimus, Ironhide, Ratchet, and Bumblebee. So you have 4 Autobots, and Starscream's shot would probably actually hit Ironhide and Ratchet instead of Bumblebee and Ironhide. These two will be able to take Starscream's damage, and now they're fully aware that he's there. Optimus would transform and tell the Autobots to be ready for anything, but this is when Brawl actually attacks here. In the original, Bumblebee was injured during this fight, but with him not taking the missile from Starscream, he's actually at full strength in this one. So this means he can fight against Brawl, okay? And the fight would actually be a lot more smoother with Optimus Prime. Optimus would have probably cut off some of Brawl's, limbs, maybe even take out a leg even. But along with Ironhide, Ratchet, and Bumblebee, who had some of the strongest firepower in the franchise, Jazz not getting there, in time. You know what? If we replaced Optimus and Jazz in these scenes here, right, the Autobots would have a much better chance at winning because they wouldn't have to worry about so much. They would have basically they would have killed Brawl, like, instantly. So, yeah, I do think it would have killed Brawl instantly. Now, this is when I would also have Jazz arrive after the fight here, but Jazz would have arrived at the same time that Megatron arrives. This makes it this makes it like a whole new can of worms here. Because now you have Megatron along with Starscream, Blackout, and Barricade. So Starscream, Blackout, Barricade. You have basically a 4 against 5 here, okay? So this is how I would do it, right? So we have Bumblebee versus Barricade, Optimus Prime versus Megatron, Ratchet and Ironhide versus Blackout and Starscream. Yeah, this would actually be a lot better for the movie because now we have characters that can really match up against each other. Now, in terms of Transformers the game, which I will be referencing a lot, Blackout was able to beat and even kill the likes of Ironhide. And it was a pretty close fight in my opinion. It was definitely close. It was a close fight. But again, Blackout was having the upper hand of Ironhide, and Ratchet was actually doing fairly competent against Starscream, but Starscream just had more firepower. With that being said here, Starscream doesn't have the ambush like he did in the original. This means that Ratchet and Ironhide are able to combat him, but again, they have to also watch out for Blackout. Blackout being on the battlefield at the same time as Starscream, this makes it a lot more difficult, okay? It makes them get pressured even. Okay, it makes them, they basically get pressured here. In all honesty, it doesn't help them out a lot. Ironhide, however, does send Blackout flying with some of his cannons, and he rushes to help Ratchet. This is when they tag team Starscream, and they're able to hold him off a lot more easier than the original. But Blackout would have gotten up for this and taken out his propeller blade ready to slice and dice Ironhide. However, this is when Jazz pretty much speeds up and pretty much trips him in his vehicle mode. Jazz would then don his battle visor in the original, preparing for an actual fight. Taking out his blade again like in the original, it's like in the concept art, taking out his javelin like in the original, Blackout and Jazz would have engaged each other in a good fight here. However, Jazz, being competent and knowing how Blackout would probably work here, aims for his chest with his cannon, pretty much shooting him, underneath his armor, actually adding the damage, basically adding damage to insult here. Jazz would have then looked on as the Autobots are actually now struggling in this battle. Bumblebee would have beaten Barricade, again, like in the original. This is basically an upgraded Bumblebee. And you have that with, it's fairly competent in my opinion. So with Jazz pretty much looking on as Optimus is getting the dog crap beat out of him by Megatron here. Jesus, he got ragdolled in that movie. Like, really. And Ironhide and Ratchet eventually losing out to Starscream. Jazz and Bumblebee decide that they need to get in there and they need to do it fast. And Jazz devises an actual plan for Bumblebee to actually help them with Starscream while he goes against Optimus. Bumblebee versus Starscream during this point would be a bit contentious, considering the sheer fact that Starscream is again above Bumblebee, like it really would have been, and Jazz would have bought time for Optimus actually playing it a lot smarter than the original. So this means that Jazz would have basically been bobbing and weaving around Megatron's blows rather than trying to take him on directly. However, Megatron would basically use his plasma cannon to hit the ground beneath Jazz. However, this would have gotten time for Optimus to come up with his blades and stab Megatron in the back. However, again, Megatron is a lot more tougher than the original. But again, like in the original, Starscream leaves Earth, and this means Bumblebee comes to help Optimus and Jazz fight against Megatron. Meaning that we get this trio jumping the mess out of Megatron. We get Megatron getting jumped here. This would have been good considering that, well, Jazz would have been a great lieutenant, and actually having Optimus and Bumblebee follow a strategy that would have worked out better in the end here. However, Megatron would prove to be again, pretty much a good tank here, and this would have resulted in them pretty much flat out losing, Jazz and the others almost dying, but Sam comes in clutch with the Allspark like in the original. This means that Jazz gets to live, and Jazz gets to, well, pretty much share the moment in the end with the rest of the Autobots. So in all honesty, yeah, I think that's how it would go for Transformers 2007 if Jazz went to fought Bonecrusher. But hey, we're going to get the sequel to Revenge of the Fallen if Jazz was actually in it. See you soon.